ever since the Levelling Up Fund officially sort of first came into being, even before it was even like a piece of legislation that was to be, passed into law for the government to actually start doing things with, there were two very, very key pieces of criticism against it. The first being the biggest and most obvious, that this Levelling Up Fund is absolutely nowhere near in any way, shape, or form the amount that we got from the European Union. It is but a pittance of what we get. And this led, of course, to the next big question, because basically, if you took that amount of money and shared it out, as, again, the European Union did, then officially, for all the deprived areas in the UK, would have pretty much got something extra of around about £500. Again, that was absolutely nothing compared to, again, what we got in the being part of the EU scheme, which was like millions of pounds to, deprived towns and areas in this country. The EU development funds made a difference. The Levelling Up Fund that Boris Johnson has proposed absolutely won't. And of course, the next big criticism came, of course, against it was how this cash was going to be allocated, because it became very clear very quickly that the only areas that were being favoured and getting the cash that they needed were, of course, Tory areas. Of course, infamously, Rishi Sunak's constituency was getting a ton of cash. And of course, when constituents were interviewed and asked about this cash, they were a bit puzzled as to why they were even getting it. And yet, towns and regions like my own in Barnsley and just, next door down Sheffield, Dan Jarvis coming out and saying, why on earth are we not getting any of this money at all? It just goes to show you where Boris Johnson's true, shall we say, priorities lie. It was never about levelling up. It was just about, shall we say, trying to secure seats and, of course, what is known as pork belly politics by, giving the voters who vote Conservatives, the pat on their head and their reward. But even those, shall we say, red wall seats are very quickly finding out, as we did yesterday, that those promises aren't going to be very forthcoming. But news today about this, because it looks like Boris Johnson is in a corruption legal battle over this. So before we do jump into this, please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button down below. And of course, there is our links to my Patreon page and of course a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee down below as well, where you can, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much to all those people that do support the channel that way. So today's story comes from The Independent, and as you can see, title is Boris Johnson facing a corruption legal battle over the 4.8 billion Levelling Up Fund that sent cash to Tory areas. So Boris Johnson is facing a corruption legal battle over whether his party has been funneling taxpayer cash into Tory areas to give it a political advantage. The High Court will decide whether the PM's £48 billion Levelling Up Fund unlawfully and systematically has sent cash to areas considered to be of political benefit to the Conservative Party. Judges agreed to hear the legal challenge brought by the Good Law Projects, stating that the grounds are indeed arguable. And like I say, if you don't know anything about the Good Law Project, then absolutely go follow them on Twitter. They have been recently doing so much good stuff about taking the government to court and really holding them accountable. They've been absolutely fantastic about it. The lawsuit was formally filed against Rishi Sunak, Robert Jerrick, and Grant Sharps in their government roles, and they could find themselves at the centerpiece of the government's so-called levelling up agenda is unlawful. The leafy market town constituencies of Mr. Sunak and Mr. Jerrick are among the areas to benefit from the very unusual funding formula that critics have accused of amounting to pork barrel politics. The campaign cited an investigation by the National Audit Office, which found that the government's list of targets for the cash had been published without even supporting information to explain why they had been chosen. The House of Commons Cross-Party Public Accounts Committee had said that the lack of transparency had been left to concerns of political bias in the allocation of funds. And 40 out of the 45 schemes to be approved under the fund in March had at least one Conservative MP. So imagine that. Out of the 45 areas, 40 were heavily Conservative areas. Not surprising at all. So John Lloyd Mulligan, the barrister who founded the campaign group bringing the suit, said at the time, "If you think that it is just a coincidence that Tory marginals are huge beneficiaries, then I have a fine bridge to sell you to ensure that the Tories do not use public money for party purposes the Good Law Project is suing." The campaign cited Chris Henry, Professor of Politics at Royal Holloway University of London, who looked at the funding formula and evidence presented by the National Audit Office and the government. On the basis of data collected by the ministry and published by the NAO, there is a robust evidence that ministers have chosen towns as also to benefit the Conservatives in marginal Westminster seats, he wrote. The evidence is robust in the sense that these effects persist even when controlling for other towns' characteristics that might be justifiably affect selection. Choosing towns to benefit a political party goes against the 7 principles of public life, aka the Nolan principles, and in particular, the obligation to take decisions impartially, fairly, and on merit, and using the best evidence without discrimination or bias. The Good Law Project has previously challenged the government in court over alleged cronyism in PPE contracts, clean air, and access to remote education during the pandemic. A spokesperson for the Ministry of Housing and Communities and Local Government Development said the response to the suit at the time, "The £4.8 billion Levelling Up Fund is open to all places in Great Britain and will play a vital role in helping to support and regenerate communities. The published methodology makes very clear the metrics used to identify the places judged to be the most in need, and it would not be appropriate to comment on the potential legal action." So we have had very, very easily these challenges, and I think this could really cause the Tories some pain. I think this is really going to cause them some pain because remember, 45 places were chosen and 40 of them were Tory areas. Only 5 were actually Labour seats. So there is very, very clear evidence straight away. I mean, you heard it right there. I mean, I'm definitely going to be following this case to see how it pans out, but I guarantee you this is going to cause a nightmare for the Tories when this comes out, because if the Tories come out with their levelling up fund that was basically built to only benefit the Tory seats, well then again, this is yet another sledgehammer that hopefully Labour can absolutely swing against the Conservatives, because all they have to do at that point is say, oh, well, the Conservatives did this, which we know only benefited them. Well, okay, here's our levelling up idea, and this is why it's better, and this is why everyone is going to benefit, regardless of whatever seat they may be in, because, again, we want to actually help level up the country. Again, this is indeed a massive opportunity for Starmer and Labour to really, really step up. But of course, as always, we will have to wait and see what happens. So as always, thank you very much for watching today's video. Please do remember to hit that like, share and subscribe button on your way out. And of course, down below, there are links to my Patreon page, as well as a one-off donation link called Buy Me Coffee, where you can, well, buy me coffee. And as always, thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you all next time.